Serious.
Jeez, oh Pete.
Welcome to another episode of our 101 on one. I'm your pod boss, Nicole Jordan. It's been a while. I almost forgot the name of the podcast.
Okay.
Alongside your professional artist, well, I was alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Berger.
Yay! I made an entrance. That's how you make an entrance.
Yeah. With your drink.
Yeah, well, I'm thirsty,
Yeah.
so I'm going to have a drink. And
me too.
We've had a lot of things going on the past couple of weeks. We've definitely neglected our responsibilities.
We have. I think we have went 2 weeks, correct? Without a.
And yeah, so anyway, I am making it a point to try to get back into a normal swing. Hopefully some things will change with the podcast so we can have a little bit more consistency.
Yeah.
Regularity.
That'd be nice.
Quality.
Yeah, quality would be good too. I would like to have a dedicated space for a podcasting room.
Well, I think we've kind of jumped different spaces. We've done different, all kinds of different things. And not that necessarily one is good or one is bad. It's just, different. And so here we are doing it. And so anyway.
So we are live. And I think
we are, I believe.
Yeah. So we've discontinued our Ask the Art Guides, but we have started a new.
Not necessarily discontinued.
Okay,
I would say that we've burned through the cards. The cards have run their course. Maybe we'll bring it back
if we find a deck that we like. I think that's kind of what we're waiting on.
Yeah. So
we picked that one up in the art museum in Kansas City.
Correct. Nelson Adkins is where we.
Hopefully, we'll find another one that we like. I think. Speaking of, so when you went back to Nelson Adkins, right? Not that long ago, they had something similar, like they had a tarot reader or something, like an artist that featured.
There's a artist who.
I think your video just came out. Am I right?
Yeah, this past Friday, there was a video that came out on Nikki de Saint Fall, and she made a tarot garden. And as a part of that, she also made a deck of tarot cards that were also sold. But as you nor I know too much about tarot cards and what they mean, I didn't buy them.
Yeah.
You left it up to me and I vetoed it.
I have a brand new tarot deck. And I've always wanted to take a tarot class. I'm great with oracle cards. I love oracle cards and doing oracle card readings, but tarot seems so much more complicated to me.
And and the nice thing about, not to get too terribly off topic, but this time of year, we've got, it's the fall is coming.
Yes, my favorite time of year.
The summer is kind of fading a little bit. The leaves are starting to fall. I noticed that there were some leaves that had already fallen off of the trees, and there's a little bit of change. There's still some heat and humidity out and about, but it's kind of tempered down into closer to the fall. So I'm cracking out, some of the Halloween type fall. Got the flannel shirt.
Oh, is that what this was about? We went to Menards today, and they have these. How big were those?
Most people outside the Midwest don't know what Menards is.
Okay, well, a home improvement store. We went to a home improvement store today, and they had gigantic lawn Halloween
blow up
skeletons and
animated
scary
animatronic
pumpkins.
Yeah.
And literally probably 15 feet. I don't know.
Oh, there was a Frankenstein that had to have been 15 feet.
He's pushing everyone at the same time.
I wanted to see how they kind of jive together, There was one that had a big pumpkin head, and he
He was cool.
talk but it's one of those things where you want to have some decoration, have some fun, but at the same time, I remember as a kid like seeing houses that had like kind of some scary decorations. Or there was one house where she was actually an art teacher and she dressed up like a witch, and I remember us going to her house and being afraid to go to her house because she had dressed up like a witch.
Really? I don't remember being scared at anybody's houses, but
and I mean I'm kind of a on edge little guy.
Yeah, you're a scaredy cat is what you are, even to this day.
I don't like jump scares. I don't like there are things like that I just don't like. I don't like being scared. I don't like people jumping out at me.
Oh, I don't either. My boys do that shit.
I don't like just like the feeling that like the other day, like was it yesterday, 2 days ago, one of the dogs came upstairs and just started barking for no reason. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like scared, kind of
jumped halfway across the kitchen.
I wouldn't say that, but I certainly jolted me for a second, and I shoot him on downstairs, and it was fine. It was not a huge deal, but I just don't I don't get down with things like that.
Do you have a favorite season? I hate asking you about favorites because I never get an answer.
I like fall. I like spring. Yeah, the fall is nice. Mostly because of the weather, and they're
fall is my favorite.
They're seasons that don't last too long. Usually, it goes from that really nice, crisp morning to just blistering cold, and then from nice, cool, like that when you're in that winter time and it starts to just kind of thaw out, and it's like, okay, like now we're starting, and then it goes from that to heat wave and humidity.
Fall is my all around, the decorations, the scents, the weather, football, like all of that stuff.
Yeah,
fall is by far my favorite.
And it's also time coming up quickly. Well, I would say probably more September, October. We're going at the end of September, we're going to bring back one of my favorite art one-on-one with Mr. Berger trends, and that is the traveling through the flavors of Count Chocula, Boo Berry, Frankenberry, and all of the General Mills monster cereals.
Why is that such a why do you want to do that? What's the reason behind that? I don't even know. It's just something you like to focus on. It's just,
why not? It's seasonal. You like I like pumpkin meringue.
Pumpkin meringue. No, I would do one of my favorite things is having Mrs. Meyer's scents for every season.
People don't know what Mrs. Meyer's is.
A lot of people will. If you would let me finish, Mrs. Meyer's is like a clean product.
It's soap. Of course it's clean.
No, it's healthy. It's not full of chemicals in that. And so I love the brand. But every season they have a different, they have a snowdrop in the winter. They have acorn spice in the fall.
Acorn spice is just delightful.
Green grass, and I don't love the summer ones. I don't like flowery ones, but and then they have mint ones that I love.
The mint one is fantastic.
It is, but
I'll give you that.
By far my favorite, which I just got in the mail today, is the fall line. And I buy all of the hand soaps, the kitchen soap, the kitchen spray, and the candle. And
wonderful.
It makes me exceptionally happy. That's why I've been in such a good mood today.
Is that why?
No.
Oh.
But it does make me. It's like a little thing like that can make me very happy.
I believe you for there for a minute. Mm-hmm. So anyway, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get to the arting.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to jump into the Journey into the Archives.
Journey into the Archives.
And I dove into a video about 3 years ago. It's a long video. Probably one of my favorites as far as keeping me entertained. Michelangelo versus Leonardo.
Michelangelo versus Leonardo. This is a battle of Renaissance Florentine history. A lot of people don't realize that they lived at the same time, they lived at the same place, and they were not buddies.
Well, they were okay. I was gonna say they were personality wise from
They
your video.
were
They were
opposites.
exact opposites. Like I think you said Michelangelo was very arrogant and
He was.
ill-mannered and just not a
Could
nice
be.
person,
He
fought
could-
people.
He was very suspicious, and his suspicions of others caused him to have a bit of some issues.
Leonardo, on the other hand, was very like calm
Very free and calm.
and nice, compassionate. Very opposite of him. But I feel like as far as like their abilities, they both like Michelangelo was a sculptor and an architect and an inventor, and Leonardo was like they would compare him to Newton, or you compared him to Newton.
Well, he did a lot of scientific research. He did lots of experiments.
And so both of
he
them
was
were
very curious of the world and the universe, which is very much a Renaissance thing. You know, people hadn't really studied the world. They hadn't studied scientific things, and so during the Renaissance, a lot of those things are happening. Things from Isaac Newton discovering the color wheel and so on and so forth, discovery of all kinds of inventions and the printing presses and lots of innovation were happening during the Renaissance. So now you know.
No, I know. But yeah, so they were both very intellectually talented,
yes,
and artistically talented.
For sure.
And Michelangelo, yeah, which one you talked about one of them being very kind of like stingy and making equivalent to like 17 million in their lifetime. Yeah. Were they both wealthy?
Yes. I mean, they were both fairly well off. They both made quite good sums of money. Michelangelo would have been probably a little bit more wealthy, but he was also very stingy. He did not spend money frivolously.
And he was the grumpy one.
He was a little more on the grumpy side, and Leonardo was more on the, like, he would hire people to come and sing. He would hire people to come. I mean, radio didn't exist at this time. And so the only way to have music was live. And so he would hire musicians and singers to come in. And while he was painting or working or whatever, he would have them.
I would like that.
Perform
like
a little.
While I'm cleaning the house, bring in Snoop to like
serenade
me.
Quite like
That's
that.
Pretty similar.
No, because Snoop has a whole like entourage.
Well,
like,
I would just take Snoop. I don't need his entourage.
You just want to look at Snoop. Weirdo.
I just want to listen to Snoop. Okay, and so I think one of the pieces, or one of the things I found interesting and sad at the same time, is that there are actually only 8 major artworks that have stayed around from Leonardo.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And
all of the others have either been lost or destroyed.
Is that because he? And I'm gonna butcher this, but like he tried a lot of different ways, like mediums or whatever, to paint with,
right?
And a lot of them weren't sustainable.
There was a lot of experimentation. Sometimes those experiments failed.
Which The Last Supper was one of them.
Correct. And that's why it's always been falling apart. Since it was made, it's been falling apart because of the way that he made it. Go back and watch the video if you want the details. But what I would say is that, yeah, he was very much into experimentation. This caused things to not work out always, typically. And he would also do, he was also very, kind of ADHD, kind of very distractible. He shifted gears from one thing to the next. He'd get really excited about a project until he wasn't, and then he kind of flaked it off.
well, that was kind of Michelangelo too. He was in the middle of this duel with Leonardo, and like left before he even finished it, right? With the murals of
Well, he left because
he got offered something
he got
that
offered
he was
something
more
better,
passionate about.
right?
Yeah.
And he was also offered the ability to sculpt instead of paint, and
So he's painting this mural against, or not really against, but
well,
I mean, it
kind
is
of, yeah,
against Leonardo, and he was kind of well ahead of the game, wasn't he? Until he left,
yeah,
and then he left to go. Was it a tomb
yeah.
that he went to paint?
No,
No,
sculpt,
not paint. Yes,
yeah.
I meant to say that. But then eventually he came back.
Right. He came back, and then because he felt like he was getting taken for a ride on the whole deal, and then so he left, and they basically begged him to come back, and so he went back because
And I'm not going to say the end of the video. I'm not going to tell people the end of the video, but it was just not what I anticipated out of the whole deal.
Dun dun dun! Exactly. Cliffhanger.
I know. So yeah, they'll have to go in and watch. But it was a very good video. It was like just like to learn like the person, like the personalities of both of them,
right?
And then how that interacted with what they were doing artistic wise. But right. I mean, was Michelangelo? Does he have a ton of work still around? Or similar to Leonardo in that
much more, because again, you are also dealing with like Leonardo mostly worked in paint and paper, right? Okay. So there were drawings and paintings.
Michelangelo was more sculpt,
right? Okay, more sculptures, and sculptures made out of marble tend to last a lot longer than things made out of canvas and paper.
Makes sense.
And so yeah, because of the media that they were working with. Yeah. And also, I mean, you also figure that most of their work, large volumes of their work, are in Europe, specifically in Italy. And a lot of these works were there during both world wars and other conflicts and things like that. So a lot of times things were potentially being destroyed inadvertently.
Yeah, and you did bring up like, oh gosh, which one was it that almost got destroyed by the air raid?
The Last Supper.
I love that's a movie we've talked about before, the Monuments Men. Yeah. If you haven't seen the Monuments Men, that's a really good movie.
It is a great one.
I love that movie, and I'd never heard of it when you told me to watch it.
Yeah. I
wasn't super excited.
I tend to lead people toward the right direction when it comes
when it comes to movies. You are awful at movies.
What are you talking about? The movies that I like are awesome.
No. I very much disagree.
No. I disagree with you.
I was gonna say something. Oh goodness, I completely lost my train of thought. Okay, so we were talking about Monuments Men, and
yeah, I think personally that the movies that I like are superior to the movies that you like. The movies that you like, I mean, I gotta tell you, they're not like
give me
so for example, you like what's this movie, this TV show that you watch, this Emily in Paris, about some teenage girl wandering around Paris. There's people fighting for no apparent reason.
Well, it's kind of like a modern Days of Our Lives,
and it's just so ridiculous. It's so unbelievable. It's so ridiculous. And the other one you watch, like the movies you watch are like 50 Shades of Pornography and things like that. Like why?
I do like a good romantic.
Well, this goes beyond romantic. These are like hardcore. Like,
and it's not
what
hardcore.
Is going on?
Kind of,
The Brotherington Brotherton
No,
or the
Bridgerton. I
Bridgerton,
watched that for a long time, but then my favorite guy went off of there, and then I
and
just haven't
what
watched
was
it
the other
since.
one where they had the Rock and they got transported to Ireland and they were
Oh, that had Jamie in
the
it. Jamie over Outlander.
Outlander.
I haven't watched that one for a while.
And
Either. I might
again,
have to
like
go
they're
back to it.
like this is the type of like they all have the common theme. It's
Well, yours are all like, yeah, mine are more like romance or like
but they're I
yours are
feel
more.
that's before you say anything, I feel like I have a lot of diversity in the things that I like. Like I'll watch Dumb and Dumber, which you refuse to watch, but I'll also watch
Like stupid comedies.
like a stupid comedy, but I'll
The
also
Office.
watch The Office is not a stupid comedy.
It is. Oh my gosh, how is that not a stupid comedy?
It's a thoughtful.
Oh my gosh, it's a stupid comedy.
Humorous drama.
Okay, let's hear what else. The Office is like you have that on all the time. Dumb and Dumber.
That's not true. I mean, I watched it today, but that doesn't mean I watch it all the time.
Okay.
I haven't watched it in weeks.
What else?
Sometimes I'll watch things that are more like I'll watch like what was it? 50 first dates or whatever that was.
That's a good
We'll
one.
watch like these romantic like comedy type
Yeah.
shows. We'll also watch House Hunters and things like
Yeah.
home fixer upper shop.
International House Hunters. That's what we're watching right now.
These House Hunter type shows. We'll watch these kinds of things. So I don't want to hear that I'm a one trick watcher. Like there are, and honestly, a lot of the times, like when like Pulp Fiction or The Big Lebowski or movies like that, I watch those alone when you're not here because
that's when I usually watch Emily in Paris and things like
that
that.
is
too.
untrue. I heard that in the background when I'm trying to sleep. I can't tell you how many times.
You're so full of flu.
All I hear
I'm
is
always up later than you. You fall asleep. Don't be telling people stories. Okay,
true.
so more about you.
More about
you'll
me.
get to know here.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to pull the Art Talk card, our new series.
Our new series,
One of our
Art Talk.
New series.
Isn't it called Art Talk?
Yeah, Art Talk. So.
Almost forgot what it was. We haven't done it so long.
I know. All right, so I'll read the first part. Norman Rockwell, one of America's most beloved artists, told stories of small town life through his illustrations, which appeared on the covers of the Saturday Evening Post from the 1920s through the 1950s. Rockwell's talent flourished in the golden age of illustration.
Right.
If you were to create a portrait of small town life today,
right,
what or who or where would be your subjects and why?
That's a great question.
I love this question.
I think that that's the thing. That's the beauty of what Norman Rockwell did with his Saturday Evening Post pictures. He got a lot of flack for it, but
but that's what he focused on all the time, was just small town. Sorry. I got to understand what he did first before you move on.
You've never seen Norman Rockwell pictures?
Yeah, but I not like, I didn't pay attention to like the consistency between them. Like,
yeah.
So it was just images that focused on small town life, just simple things in small town life.
It focused on small town white America. Okay. No diversity. You got redheads and brunettes. That's as diverse as it gets.
Okay.
All white kids, white old men, white old women, white. Everybody's white. And he gets a bad rap because
there is no diversity?
There's no diversity, and he portrays a very white America. Generally speaking, this is not always true, but it's generally true. And toward the end of his life, he actually changed that quite a bit by adding more diverse subjects and topics, including the problem we all live with, which was a painting that he did of a little girl going to kindergarten. Her name was Ruby Bridges, from New Orleans, Louisiana, walking to school with the United States Marshals, which again was a historical
traumatic event for that little girl.
Well, yeah, but it was a true event.
Yes.
A historical event. and she was kind of the center of it. There are a couple kids that were kind of the center of these civil rights um, landmark lawsuits that allowed these children to get to go to school in schools that were deemed all white or supposed to be all white. And they said, yeah, no, they're public schools, anybody from the public can go. And anyway, so he painted this picture. He was married 3 times. All 3 times he was married to teachers, and he was very much in his last wife was very involved with the civil rights movement, believed that kids should have rights and people should have, equal,
Yeah.
normal American sorts of ideas. And so he was very influenced by her opinions, and he became even more aware of the perception that Norman Rockwell, are you a racist? Because you're not painting any black kids. You're not painting any, it's all white kids, So, so he very much tried to change that at the end of his life. As a matter of fact, he came out and stated that he wanted to had added diversity to his paintings, but editors and people that were in charge of the magazines said, we don't want that. We don't want to see diversity. Paint your Santa Claus, paint your little white guy coming home from the war, paint your this, paint your that, but
Yeah.
we don't need diversity. And he said, okay, well, I think I do. And so he quit. But anyway, it's one of those where if I was to paint that sort of thing, I think that's what I would, and what Norman Rockwell did to kind of go back to that, to circle back to that. He focused on people from his hometown or from the town that he was living in. So he would see the little boy walking down the street and he'd say, hey, little boy, do you want to pose for a picture? And he'd pose the little boy and he'd take a photograph, and then he'd use that photograph or have them model and pose, and he would paint them from the model or the pose or the photograph or the whatever. And he would use like people from his neighborhood, oftentimes saying, hey, you look like you would be a good character or whatever. And he would use those characters over and over and over again. And I think that's how I would want to approach it. Just like move to a town, and it could be anywhere, and just walk around and say, hey, wow, like you would be a great subject for this, or you would be a great subject for that, and just find like real people, interesting looking people that maybe, and they have stories, and incorporate those into the mix. But that's what I would do.
I would find I would do something similar. I would do one of two things. I would go to a new town and find, or go to any towns, for example, and find like inspirational people or things that have happened that are doing good in the world for no other reason than just out of the good of their hearts. And I would focus on those people. Or I would travel around and just find the things that I found most interesting and capture those.
Yeah.
Just because I want to travel.
And my family. I'd use my family as subject matters,
Really?
which I do that a lot. I draw, like, I've drawn Hank and Etta several times. I've drawn Brooklyn and Brody all my children several times. I've drawn, my dad and my grandparents, and like from old, like you find an old photograph and things like that. Like I don't know. I appreciate
That's my favorite thing that you draw is people. Like when you capture people intimately.
Yeah.
I've never been a pop art, and that's kind of your thing.
Pop surrealism is technically my thing.
Surrealism,
but
which is not my thing.
But like the portraits and the things like that I do. And the ebb and flow of inspiration. Sometimes you get into a certain thing, and I'm kind of doing some very specific works right now that are kind of focused on, you know, very specific surfaces and very specific subjects and things like that. But I think,
So if you had money, is that what you and you just wanted to focus on your art? Is that what you would do? Just go around and paint people and
yeah, I mean,
like
just
if you
like,
didn't have to make an income.
yeah, just like, I'd make my videos and do my thing and say, hey. But the thing is, like, if you don't have a name, like if you're Andy Warhol and you go up to somebody and say, hey, you're somebody that I think I should do a drawing of, what do you think? Then they might say, yeah, you're Andy Warhol, I'll do that. But if you're me and you walk up to somebody and say, hey, you would be a great subject for my painting, they're going to be like,
He's gonna murder me.
yeah, he's going to murder me. He's going to, like, I'm going to mace this
Well,
guy.
that's where
He's
you
a
would-
creep or a weirdo
I
or
think you would
whatever.
do it in a community that people knew you.
Correct. Like, you would have to have a rapport. Like, again, people knew who Norman Rockwell was. So going and visiting, going up to a little boy and saying, hey, little boy, do you want to be in my, and then talking to the kid's parents and like explaining what you want to do and,
Right.
and having a name and saying, look, here's all the magazines that I've been doing this for 50 years. Oh, okay. Like, you're a legit person. You're not some, our kids aren't in danger or whatever. I mean, that's a real thing, especially in
No,
our world. I mean, I'm sure it was
get
then
I
too.
agree with you.
But especially now in the world, like, you can't just go up to a person on the street and say, hey, come back to my house, I want to paint you. You're going to get arrested.
Yeah. I want to like circle back to something. This is way off topic of where we are now.
Okay,
But
I'll allow it.
so like because you were making me think of my childhood and like I don't know why like painting memories of that kind of came to mind as you were talking. Like maybe that's one of the things I would like to do is like go back and paint those memories that are just like that I want to remember with my parents or grandparents or whatever. And like for some reason I always envisioned like my grandparents' kitchen and they had a picture like I have it actually. They had a picture of the Last Supper on their wall.
The Last Supper?
Or the Last Supper.
With Jesus in the middle and the 12 disciples?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have that of my grandparents. And I swear everybody of that older generation, when I went into their house, everybody had that painting in there. It's like that and there was a like a Lutheran, I don't know, or a saying that a lot of people had up on their wall. I'm trying to think. Oh no, the guy that you'll know this. It's like
Grace.
the black. Yes, Grace.
It's a photograph.
Yes, those were like I swear every house I went in of like that older generation of like my grandparents or their friends or whatever, they all had those same pictures in there.
When I was a little kid, I was convinced that the guy in the photograph, Grace, was related to me because he was in every single house that I'd gone to. My parents didn't have one, but most every house that, like my grandparents all had it. And there were aunts and uncles and, extended family that had copies of the photograph Grace, which is the official state photograph of the state of Minnesota. And this is where the man is got his head down and he's got his glasses folded up on top of what's supposed to be a Bible, but it's not a Bible. It's actually a dictionary. If you look at how thick it is, it's obvious that it's way too thick to be a Bible.
Is that a truth? Like
it's
a proven thing? You're not just like...
No. This is I actually have a video about it. You can go back and watch the video on Grace and all of the pieces to it. The guy was he was selling something door to door, and the photographer was like, hey, I'll give you some money if I don't want to buy what you're selling, but you have a great beard, you have a great face. I'd love to use you for a photograph. If you'll come and sit down, let me take some photos of you, then I'll give you some money. He's like, okay. So he went and he sat down and he he wanted to have like this, like, praying before a meal sort of scene. So he grabbed a big dictionary and he put it down on there, and he turned it so the spine wasn't toward the camera. He put some glasses on top. He had the guy bow his head, grabbed a piece of bread and a bowl of soup or whatever he had, and he just slid it over there in front of him and took the photos. Eventually, they would redo the photo, adding in a photo edit of a window or a light source on the left. So if you have one of the originals, it's kind of a consistent wall all the way across. If you have one of the newer ones, it has like a window light source on the left hand side of the picture as you look at it. And anyway, yeah, I guess the guy,
I'll have to look at
the guy that they took the photo of, I can't think of his name, but he was like this, like constantly in trouble with the law, in trouble, like
Really?
not
exact
a nice,
opposite of what that
yeah,
picture depicted.
not a nice, contributing member of his society or his community. Homeless and like just in trouble with everybody, trouble with the law, trouble with trying to keep himself on the straight and narrow and all that. And he not just sold it away for $20 or whatever it was. Because the guy, they made,
oh my goodness, it was everywhere.
They made a huge amount of money off selling prints of that thing. And
do you have that same experience, like the Last Supper and Grace? Do you remember? I swear
there were some family members and things like that had copies of the Last Supper. There were lots of pictures of American Gothic. There are lots of pictures of the Grace. There were things like that I remember as a kid. For me, one of the biggest memories was at my grandma's house, my grandmother Berger, my dad's mom. When you would walk into her kitchen, she had like this breezeway, and you walk through the next door, and then there was like a sitting parlor type room, and then there was her kitchen, and she had like a dine-in kitchen type deal. And so you'd walk into her kitchen, and on the wall, as you walk into the kitchen on the left-hand side, there was a bulletin board. And it wasn't a huge bulletin board, but it was, a good sized bulletin board, and on the bulletin board were all of the photos, like that's where she put the photos. So when she got your school photo, she'd put it on the bulletin board, and
like instead of the fridge,
right? Because the fridge, she had one of these old fridges that you had like a metal, it was curved.
Yeah.
Her refrigerator was curved, so you couldn't really put stuff on the refrigerator the way you can like a flat refrigerator, like modern time. And she had a brass handle on it, and that's how you opened her. She had a really old refrigerator, and she had like her stove had these gas burners, and it was like ceramic knobs. It was like her kitchen was out of like the 1940s, probably 1930s, 1940s. Old house. Anyway, the point is, she had that bulletin board, and she'd have old pictures kind of mixed in with new. And then when she kind of started to run out of space, and she had a shoebox, and one of the biggest, I don't know why this was, but when we would come and visit, one of the greatest pastimes of hanging out, looking through grandma's shoeboxes of old photos. And she had photo album after photo. Just thousands of photos. And you would look through, and they were all just kind of cobbled together. and some would have writing on the back and say, oh, this is there or here, or give you a location or whatever, or who it was. But usually it was just a bunch of thousands and thousands of photos in shoeboxes.
See, and I have like I would love to just go through and scan, and I've wanted to do this for years since my brother died. I've always wanted to do this, to go through and do like a family video. I even have chronological pictures of like my grandparents, and then my mom and dad, and then my brothers and sisters, and then their families. Gosh, I probably did this about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't know, but like creating a video of our story, like where
Mm.
did we come from, and like scan those in, because I have work scanners that can do that, and then create a video with music, and kind of like the ones they do for, which is just kind of weird, but like a funeral, or like at a wedding when you're posting. But I've always wanted to do that, and I have it in chronological order and everything, and I've just never done it.
Yeah, I'd like to make one for my funeral, because I'm pretty sure whoever's in charge of doing it's going to pick the wrong photos, and it's just going to
I'm telling you, you're just going to record and write down what you want, because you have a lot of wants for your end of life stuff.
Well, the music is very specific. The statuary is very specific. The fireworks show, the parade.
I actually had this in a dream.
The videos.
I think this is my thought, and I thought I could start a fad doing this. I had a dream. Okay, I had a dream. I woke up, and then I thought about it the rest of the day. But it was like, I need to start this huge change of not having these sad funerals. Like, let's have, because you get closer to the end of life, have a party while you're still alive with all your people, like a celebration of life party while you're still alive, and the people can still love you and see you and hug you
and say goodbye,
and just like, hey, there's no more funerals, no more, like, that's what I think.
And honestly, I think, yeah, I see that. I think that it's important to respect the folks that after they passed away.
Well, yes.
And that whole
ritual,
yes, I think is important and valuable. But I also think you have a good point. I would much rather be able to be there and say,
say the things you want to
yeah,
say.
I mean, if I knew, like, if I knew I got a year, then I would, then I could do that, or I would do that. But unfortunately, most of us don't know.
Right.
So,
but I still think if you're getting like old, and like as my parents get older, like I feel like my dad would like to do that.
But I think that's a little bit like, okay, you've turned 80. Let's have let's get a little, I think when it's your idea, it's different than, you could die any minute now. Maybe we should have
but I think that's what most people, like, when, like, you hear of people on their deathbed, and the things that they like say is that they wish they had more time with family. They wish they would have done these things. Like,
for sure.
So I know it's like kind of impossible, but in some situations it could be possible. Like, to have that celebration of life while they're alive, and you can have the opportunity to tell them how they feel, or how you feel, and I don't know, just makes more sense.
But I also
when you can do
but it. I also think that you don't necessarily need to wait for.
Right.
For example.
Agreed.
We had last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a service for my aunt and uncle that had passed away, and kind of a memorial service, and all of the things, the music and it was very non-traditional.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of the timing of it, but also the music was very non-traditional. The The atmosphere was kind of non-traditional. It was very different, and in a good way. And one of my uncles was there, and we were socializing like we are right now, talking about this, talking about that. And I mentioned to him, how much, he meant to me. I talked to him about some personal things, and he was like, I'm glad you told me about it. And so I think that there's lots of
Right.
times that we can make that choice of, I'm going to send somebody a phone call. I'm just going to call
Yeah.
my aunts or uncles. I'm going to call my cousins. I'm going to now, especially in our world today, it is so quick and easy to shoot a direct message to somebody on
But
Facebook.
it's so
It
impersonal.
it is, but you can do that. You can say, "Hey, when are you free? I'd like to talk to you," or FaceTime, or there's a million ways to do it.
Right.
There's a million ways to do it. And you can make it as personal or impersonal as you want.
True.
And you can also say, like just being able to say, hey, look, like I appreciate you. Or whatever. Have that conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to, you don't have to wait for
No, but I still think it'd be like
a
this cool
catastrophe.
thing.
Right.
Like to have this celebration while they're still alive and them to be able to feel all that love while they're still alive rather
Right.
than like, oh, I wish I would have said this or done this or
Maybe they
whatever.
should do that instead of like your first birthday. They should just have like your first funeral. And then like
Well, like, okay, if you make it to 50, like it's, or 75, I don't know. There's really no good way to do it, but I still think like I think that'd be a cool thing to do with my parents right now. Not that I think they're going to die anytime soon or I hope that's not going to happen, but
yeah, well,
let's celebrate now while we're all
celebrate now
celebrate while you can.
while you can.
Tell the people why you can.
While you can still walk, let's celebrate, because pretty soon you're going to be you're going to be bedridden and whatever. And again, I think that it's a hard thing. We're all but that's just life. We're all susceptible to
I know
an end, and we don't get to know.
Yeah.
So anyway, now that we've made everything doom and gloom,
it's not though.
Welcome to the
no, it's not.
to the
It's an idea
apocalypse of art. I'm your host.
That really side railed our conversation, but
the Doctor of Death.
Anyway. Yeah.
Maybe next time it'll be more uplifting. People will want to watch.
It was intended to be uplifting, like celebrating people and their stories and recognizing them and getting them to feel the love while they're still alive. That's a positive, uplifting
thing. I moved, I'd want to celebrate people and have their funerals.
Okay, we're gonna.
All right, wrap it up, lady.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, on our unscheduled live. We're going to make it a point to be better at scheduling and consistent. And soon we should have a dedicated space for podcasting.
Well, and we're wanting to do some different things, and there's always ideas and things are evolving. And anyway, as we evolve through, hopefully we can bring you good content that's at least adequate before we all die.
All right. Well, thanks for watching.